I've mentioned a couple of times already how the annual get-togethers, of which this is a substitute this year, are really fantastic. I mean, I went there first of all thinking, oh, it's going to be a bit weird, you know, trout obsessives, and actually it's anything but really, really entertaining weekends. And I'm only mentioning this by way of introduction to our next film. Jack Perks, the wildlife photographer. I first met him, I think it was in North Yorkshire at a Wild Trout Trust get-together. Instantly smitten by him, a really interesting character and a brilliant photographer as well.
Yeah, brilliant photographer. And he in the film, he describes how he's kind of trying to reveal the life of our fish, and I think he's doing a fabulous job at that.
Well, I think it's so easy. We get fixated, don't we, by big species and the sort of Attenborough big productions. And as you're about to hear, Jack Perks is trying to do the same kind of thing as a sort of Blue Planet, a huge production number, but on humble British freshwater fish. Here he is.
So my name is Jack Perks and I'm a wildlife photographer and cameraman based in Nottingham, and today it's absolutely boiling, but I'm having a little fish on my local river, which is Fareham Brook. I always remember being interested in nature and wildlife as far back as I can go. The fish side of things came when I was about 11. I was a very keen angler then. I just started it up. I got a little rod from Woolworths, a kind of starter kit sort of thing, and I was hooked. If you excuse the pun, I was absolutely hooked. I loved it. And from there, I thought, well, how can I make a living? How can I combine this interest in wildlife, in fish and all that sort of stuff? And photography and filmmaking was the perfect tonic for that. From there, I studied for 2 years on a BTEC course in photography, and then I did a 3-year course in marine and natural history photography down in Cornwall. 3 fantastic years down there. And somehow, I've kind of fumbled a career filming fish and wildlife. And I'm a general naturalist. I love fish, but I love all wildlife and things like that. So that's what really interests me. And that's how I started some 10 years ago now, and I've somehow made a fantastic life out of it. So a couple of years after graduating university, I was kind of, didn't have a lot on, not a lot of work. I was a bit bored, to be honest with you. And I thought, well, how can I keep myself occupied and do something interesting? So I decided to try and film every freshwater fish in Britain, every species. Not every single fish, that'd take a long time. But I thought, well, has anyone done this? No one had done it, no one had even seen them all, let alone filmed them. So I thought, this is a great little project, and I thought it would only take me a year. It took seven years to actually film them all. And I went everywhere. I went all the way up to the Shetland Isles, I went down to Cornwall, I did a lot in the Midlands around here where I live. You name it, I went there, filming everything from Arctic char, lamprey, loads of rare and wonderful fish, and I had an absolute ball doing it, getting to meet loads of fantastic people. It was an amazing project to do, and I like to think somehow it did kind of encourage people to think about fish not just as protein or just something that swims in a dirty river, but as incredible creatures with amazing behaviours all of their own. Some of the early issues was trying to find these species. Often anglers don't target them, things like rough and bleak. There's normally a bycatch. You don't get many anglers who actually target those kinds of species. So some of the mini species were very difficult to find. And then just the rare ones in general, things like lamprey, river lamprey were really, really difficult to try and find there. And then shad, which was the last one on the project, the Alice shad. I had a hell of a time trying to locate them, and eventually I did film them. So it was really, really rewarding to do that. There were so many shoots where just nothing happened, and obviously if you kind of follow the work that I do, I only really share the successes, but there are a lot of times where I travel quite far, maybe spend a week filming, and just nothing would happen, and that's wildlife. Unfortunately, it doesn't always go to plan. Along the way, I dislocated my shoulder. I fell down a riverbank and did that. I also chopped the end of my finger off when I was tinkering one of my cameras with a penknife. I wouldn't recommend that. So it did take a big toll. And also on family, people don't really talk about this aspect, but I was away from my family quite a lot. So it did take a lot of effort, time, and mental struggles, I suppose. But it was all worth it in the end, and just fantastic to complete it. Access could be tricky. I have to say that the vast majority of people I came into contact with, whether they were nature reserves, whether they were fishing clubs, were normally pretty good, but often there can be some internal politics where, because I'm freelance, I work for anyone, and people see that you've worked for an organisation that they don't necessarily like, and then you have to kind of stress, well, no, it's just a freelance basis, I'm not actually working for them, I work for anyone. So that could be tricky, but for the most part, getting into rivers was pretty easy. I always seek permission of the local angling club. I always just say, look, I'm thinking about doing this, are you happy? And normally, as long as you let them know what you're doing, they're fine with me doing the work that I do. Every now and again you get one that doesn't want to, but there's normally plenty of other places that you can go and get the filming done. One of the, I was going to say best, maybe iconic pieces of footage that I've shot is the grayling mating. That's probably what I'm best known for in fishy circles, as it's been dubbed 50 Shades of Grayling. And the story behind that is it took 4 years to film that one sequence. It took ages. And this was in the Peak District. I live in Nottingham, but I go up to the Peak District a lot. There's some phenomenal rivers up there. And I was trying to find grayling spawning. Found them. Tried to film them, and they were very spooky. It took a long time to get close to them. And eventually, after 4 years of finding the right places, the right spots, got this pair of grayling on a pole cam, just gently going up to them, and they did that piece of footage. Now, at the time, I didn't really think it was that funny. I didn't see the funny side, but on re-watching it, obviously it looks like she's having a great time, and the male is just kind of going at it. I mean, from a behavioural point of view, phenomenal. The male putting his dorsal fin over the female, I was absolutely chuffed to death with that. And the sad reality is that she's not enjoying herself. She opens up her mouth so that more oxygen can flow through her gills, because grayling typically don't stay stationary, they move around all the time. So that's the kind of boring explanation. She's not having a knee tremble, she's just getting oxygen through her gills. The project to film every single freshwater fish, all 53, or 54 if you count the burbot, but I don't because they're almost certainly extinct, although there are plans to reintroduce them soon, hopefully. It really culminated in the Alice shad. That was the last species to target, and I very nearly didn't get to do it. As I mentioned, access can be tricky, and the club on that particular river were really wary about letting me on it, and I had to do some smooth talking to get them to agree, but eventually they did, and they were fantastic. And I was able to get the shad, and it was a real emotional moment. Not only did I film them there though, there is a trap for salmon and sea trout, and one of these shad went into the trap. Now this is very rare. I mean, I think in the last 6 years I've only had 2, so it's very, very rare that the shad go in there, but they got one, and I was actually able to hold this Alice shad. So this creature, this fish that had ended a 7-year challenge, I had it in my hands, and it was quite emotional. I'm not a very emotional person, but I almost teared up, and then was able to release this amazingly rare fish, this Alice shad. So that was amazing. From there, the media attention was fantastic. People were really interested in what I've been doing, and it's gone on to do lots of other exciting things, like working with Springwatch and Countryfile, and anyone that'll have me. I'm not fussy really, but it's been a great little profession to do that. In terms of what's next, I've got plenty of plans. I'm actually working on a film, and this is an exclusive to you guys. I've not released this publicly yet, but it's called Britain's Hidden Fishes. This is going to be an hour film, think Blue Planet, but on a much smaller budget and just British fish. So I'm going to do marine and freshwater. It's going to be narrated by Jeremy Wade, so I know Jeremy, he's agreed to do that. I've got a composer on board, editor, other camera people. I'm mainly doing production, but I will be doing some filming for it as well. And it's going to showcase the amazing behaviours and stories of British fish. I've been pitching this to TV programmes for ages. None of them are interested. Their fish are boring. We don't want to do an hour on them, and I want to prove them wrong. Fish are not boring. They are incredible. They've got amazing stories to tell, and I want to showcase this for a film that I'm going to be crowdfunding, and that'll be later this year, so keep your eyes out for that. Britain's Hidden Fishes. Apart from that, I've also got a book coming out, and I'm always in a river somewhere filming. I mean, I would be filming today, but the river's a little bit murky, so it gives me a rare chance to indulge in a bit of centerpin fishing and see if I can't catch a chub or two. So I'm going to leave you there, but thanks for watching.